afternoon, everybody. Welcome to South Wales. Norwich City return to Championship action this afternoon here against Swansea City, and we will have the team news for you in about a minute's time. As you haven't noticed, it's absolutely freezing cold, and of course, 'tis the season and all of that. We've had some Christmas music, so why not go for the Christmas graphics? Let's hope Norwich City or Santa. No, we should have made that Santa yellow and green. Can I just say? We'll have to sort that out. Anyway, we'll bring you the team news as it drops in just a moment's time. We have seen Josh Sargent. He's been on the pitch already, sort of surveying the scene. Adam Eder also here as well. There was only a few Norwich City players that were about as we made our way into the stadium. Pat, it's very cold. The team news is going to drop in about a minute, so I feel like I'm going to cut across you straight away. But good to be back.
Just as you said that, a huge drop from the top of this roof has caked my arm of my coat in wet water. And when we got here, first world problems.
Right, that's enough about us. Team news, here we go. Norwich City line up like this. Angus Gunn in goal. Max Aarons, Grant Hanley, Ben Gibson, Isaac Hayden, McCallum, Sarah Sinani, Pookie, McLean and Sargent. I'll try and put that in a formation for you in a moment. But this is the Norwich City team. Just to run through that again. Angus Gunn, Max Aarons, Grant Hanley, Ben Gibson and Sam McCallum. Looks like a back four. Hayden, Sarah and McLean with, I would say, Sinani in the 10 behind Pookie and Sargent. So that looks to me like the diamond shape, not diamond shape, the 3-1-2 that Norwich City ended or went into the break playing. The substitute for you, Tim Krul, Andrew Omavamadeli, Kieran Dow, Adam Eder, Onel Hernandez, Dimi Yanulis and Liam Gibbs. So 4-3-1-2 for Norwich City. Pat, I guess the major talking point of that is Daniel Sinani's inclusion.
Yeah, and flip side of that is Aaron Ramsey's omission. And I mean, the indication, possibly there's an injury there. Well, clearly there is. The fact that he's not in either the 11 or on the bench. We've heard one or two bits or pieces that there could be something they're monitoring related to an issue out in Tampa. Dean Smith didn't volunteer that yesterday at his pre-match press call. So we'll put that to him, obviously, now in light of that team news with no Aaron Ramsey. And that's obviously for another day in terms of how long he might be out. But here and now, no Ramsey, but Daniel Sinani. And it's quite the about turn for a guy who hasn't really, featured too heavily the other side of the World Cup. Pause. Edged out Rashica. We go right back to the start of the season. Then didn't convince really. I remember a game at Birmingham, and then there was a game at Middlesbrough where he started both with Kieran Dowell, who's on the bench again today, and both of them got hooked. And thereafter, he never really kind of got himself back in. So massive opportunity for him today. If that is the shape, then we've not really seen him in that 10 role. So I'll be very intrigued to see how that one goes. But a massive positive, clearly. Josh Sargent fit for action. Even yesterday, Dean Smith's body language and demeanour suggested that would come maybe too early, albeit it wasn't going to be a major concern. The sprained ankle that kept him out this day last week over in Qatar. Talking of temperatures, I bet that man's needing to acclimatise because it is absolutely Baltic here compared to what he would have experienced out there in the Middle East. But great to see him back and fit and available. And other than that, not hugely surprised. I thought maybe Gibbs, when he was talking about they need to be better, in terms of possession, but also outside of possession. I thought maybe he might have a shout, but no, he stuck with Hayden. We know what he thinks of Kenny McLean, and obviously Zara has, really seemingly got to grips with it in these last 2 or 3 games for him in a Norwich shirt. So no surprise that he's back in the 11 today. So looking at it, there is one major surprise in that 11, and it is Daniel Sinani. But as I say, the flip side of that is what it means for Aaron Ramsey, and fingers crossed that isn't going to be a lengthy absence. But we'll obviously put that to Dean Smith, and we'll hopefully get more post-match. But for the here and now, big opportunity for that young man, because we all know what Dean Smith felt about Daniel Sinani at the start of the season, but he didn't really grasp his opportunity, and he's got another one today. And you would think he won't lack for motivation because he's had to kick his heels for quite a number of weeks, months even. So interesting how they set up for me. If it is him in the 10, good performance today, and he could be the answer moving forward. But yeah, a little bit concerned. I mean, it's good broadening it out on the bench. We've got Obama, Daly, and Ida. And moving forward, probably too much of a risk to put them both in from the start today after their own longer-term absences. But moving forward, it's great to have those two options on the bench, I think, and potentially able to introduce, certainly in Ida's case, if Sargent starts, isn't quite right, you've got Ida there as well. So we'll see. But this group of players have a lot to prove, and as Dean Smith said, hopefully we see a reset starting today. But it won't be easy, that is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to run through that team again for any late comers, Norwich City lineup: Bangasgun in goal, Aaron, Stanley, Gibson and McCallum as the back four. Looks to be a 3-1-2 with Hayden, Sarah and McLean making up the central midfield aspects of that. Daniel Sinani in a number 10 behind Tamer Pukki and Josh Sargent. Wouldn't be totally surprised if it became a 4-3-3 with Sinani on one side and Sargent on the other, but that is probably my interpretation of how it will line up at the moment. I'll just try and find the Swansea team for you. Of course, managed by Russell Martin, his first reunion with Norwich City since he departed the club. Obviously, he had a pre-season friendly, I think, and there was also a what's the trophy called now? Papa John's trophy game against the 21s at one point. But in terms of proper reunions, this is the first. They line up like this: Bender in goal, Manning, Bolton, Cabango, Grimes, Patterson, Perot, Cundall, Lataboudiere, Woods and Kyle Norton, of course, who enjoyed a spell at Norwich City. Their subs bench: Fisher, Darling, Allen, Nutcham, Cullen, Okoflex and Ollie Cooper as well. So that is how, thank you very much, that is how Swansea City line up this afternoon. Pad, on Josh Sargent, he's clearly been, certainly from our perspective, a major talking point over the break. He's been to the World Cup. He's put in some pretty good performances, by all accounts, for the US. Obviously, that goal kind of evaded him a little bit. Are you surprised, given, A, the injury concern, but also the fact that he's been away from the group, that he's come straight back in this afternoon? I was probably expecting him to maybe be given a little bit of time after that World Cup. So are you surprised, or does it just highlight how important he is to this Norwich City group at this moment in time?
The latter for me, Connor. I mean, 9-goal top scorer for the club, but also not far off the top of the goal charts in the Championship more broadly. And I know Dean Smith wanted to focus on what they're not doing without the ball again yesterday, but certainly with it, he's a major asset and playing in a central position, because I think it's safe to say Timu isn't looking like he, at the current rate, that he's going to get anywhere near the last two times at this level in terms of his prolific turnover of goals. So if you can't rely on the GOAT to the same extent, then a guy who's already got 9 to his name in the league, you get him in as soon as. So for me, the only debate today was that injury. And as Dean Smith mapped out yesterday, they whipped him back into the UK as soon as they could. He's been back in the group since Monday. He's been assessed constantly. We spoke to Dean before yesterday's final training session, and that seemed to be the make or break element. He's obviously come through that without any alarms. They'll have taken a lot of feedback from the player himself. And if you're Josh Sargent, why don't you want to carry on? Because yes, he didn't get his goal out in Qatar, but he started 2 of the 3 games for the US. And I thought, in general, I'd agree with Dean Smith's assessment. I thought he embellished his reputation. I thought he really did look like a player who could step up and play at that level. So he, albeit hugely disappointing to miss their game against the Dutch last weekend, the last 16 knockout game, through injury. But while that would have been quite a heartbreaking experience, I think overall he should come back here full of confidence, because he's gone there, probably didn't think he was going to be a frontline option, started 2 of the 3 games. I think it's safe to say if he had been fit, he would have started against the Dutch last weekend. So he should be full of confidence, and I just hope, that the medical people, the sports science people, they've assessed it thoroughly, and they don't think there's any risk by playing him today. But no, in terms of his importance to Norwich City this season, it's a no-brainer. You get him back in the side and you get him playing, and hopefully he carries on where he left off in terms of his goal output. Scored, didn't he, against Middlesbrough in the last game, albeit the result got away from them, but it was another Sargent goal, and you feel if they're going to get anything here today, he needs to carry on where he left off.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just in what shape and what form Norwich City come back in, and how much what's gone before accounts for what we're about to see perhaps in the next block of games, you would imagine that if this maybe doesn't go the way you would expect, those feelings, particularly on a fan level, of what we saw prior to the break are going to come back pretty quickly. But from a pure playing perspective, Pad, I mean, Dean Smith used this different animal line to describe what he wanted to see. How much of that are you expecting to see today, or are you expecting it to perhaps be more obvious in the games ahead? Like you say, after today, I think 4 of the next 5 games are at home, including obviously that FA Cup tie against Blackburn. So it does feel like they've got an opportunity, if they can come out firing, to probably get some momentum back into their season.
Absolutely, yeah. To answer Neil, I can't feel my feet, so it's that cold. And that's a bad sign because it's only 2:10, so God knows what.
This is frozen. It's how cold.
Right. Anyway, but to be fair, I'll spin it round at the end that the sun is trying to break through. So we've had 4 seasons in one on the journey over from our base in Newport overnight today. So, but anyway, I digress. Yeah, no, I tried to put that to Dean Smith in terms of this next period after today, 4 of the next 5 at Carrow Road, where they've been far from convincing and us being generous. And I think he wanted to take a step away from that and make the point they're not even at the halfway stage and there's still 25 games left, which is a huge chunk of games. Yeah, absolutely. But you look at it and Burnley have slipped a gear and Watford seemingly felt like going into the World Cup that Bilic has got them going. I know Blackburn have had a bit of a setback today, but the fear is that Norwich need to get themselves up and going again because other teams will hit that momentum shifter and then they'll leave themselves too much to do, irrespective of how many games are left as we go to the turn of the year. So, but even parking that, for me, it's not about the league table per se at this stage. Points on the board, gaps to the top 2. Dare I say it, if things go wrong, the next game or 2, gaps to the top 6. It's just actually about some tangible evidence now that Smith and his coaches and this group of players can find something that gives you any level of confidence that things can be different. And I don't think we're there yet. And it would take a really good performance here today, ideally with a result wrapped around it, to shift that narrative. Because, I was probably fortunate not to be at the Middlesbrough game, but by all accounts, that second half was on and off the pitch fractious, I think. So that's where we pick it up. And if they don't shift the narrative, then I dread to think what the next 5 games at Carrow Road can bring. It could get very toxic very quickly. So, he's been around the block long enough. He knows that irrespective of whether there's 25 league games left, for his own survival prospects, he needs to get this team going again because, it's not enough to sit there and listen to him yesterday talking about my gripe is that all season we've not been good enough out of possession or we've lost control of games. You'd like to hear by now that that was under control. They'd addressed that, and that they were now moving forward in a more positive fashion. We're a long way from that. So today's the latest opportunity. Let's see what he can produce, and if we see more of the same from where they left off against Middlesbrough on November the 12th, then I think we all know what the reaction's going to be tonight.
Absolutely. Let's end with we're going to do 2 score predictions. So obviously we'll do the Norwich game and then we'll do the England game as well. So Paddy, first and foremost, this Norwich game, what are you expecting here today in terms of a score prediction? How do you feel it's going to go?
I can give it any thought till you just asked me that question. So I'm just going to freewheel it out, and I can't see Norwich winning today, if I'm brutally honest. I think the best they can get is a draw here because the recent sample isn't enough to suggest you anything else. So, funny enough, we had a good chat with Ewan Roberts before the game here. He's seen a lot more of Swansea than we have. He said when they're very good, they're very good. Or when they're good, they're very good at championship level. But they do widely inconsistent performances. And when they're bad, he says they're very bad. So it might hinge on what version of Russell Martin Swansea turns up today. I'm sure he won't lack the motivation, him and Matty Gill, but whether that transmits to their players or not. So I guess I'm probably lending more towards a score draw, Connor. Yourself?
Yeah, I feel we could be looking at a 1-1 here today. I'll throw it back over to you. England, France, very, very quickly. How do you see that one going?
Well, let's be positive and let's say England by the odd goal, but it wouldn't surprise me if France do a job on them, But either way, we'll be listening to it on the radio on the way home, and hopefully armed with a positive Norwich result. Because if we end up having to drive 6 hours back and Norwich have got beat and England get beat, it's going to feel more like 12.
It is. I'm going to go for a 1-1 in that one and a defeat on penalties. But I don't think there'll be a lot between it. I can see it going either way. But let's get through this game first, and we can turn our attentions to that World Cup quarter-final, because it is the bizarre nature of the season that we're currently living in. That over there, where Paddy has got the camera, is where the 615 Norwich fans will be this afternoon. They've made the long trip. Let's hope they get rewarded. Thank you very much for watching. Pinkin.com and the Pinkin Plus app, of course, the place to go throughout the afternoon for live coverage, analysis, and reaction to this game. It's good to be back, I think.